You don't trust me? That's what this is about. Julia's voice cut through the air like glass on tile, sharp, sudden, and loud enough to make the spoon in my coffee mug rattle against the porcelain. We were standing in our kitchen, quiet, minimal, sunlight hitting the stone countertops just right. I had just asked her where she'd gone earlier that afternoon. Not with suspicion, not with heat, just curious. You left work early, I said. Logan mentioned you ducked out before lunch. She rolled her eyes, arms folding across her chest as she leaned against the kitchen island. Her lips pressed into a tight, defiant line. I went shopping, she said. Quick. Easy. I nodded, sipping my coffee again. Pick up anything interesting? That did it. Her whole body stiffened like I'd struck a nerve. Wow, she muttered, loud enough to echo. So now I need to report to you like a child? You want me to line up my shopping bags and explain every receipt? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Her reaction said more than any receipt ever could. Julia pushed off the counter, voice rising. God, Ethan, you're impossible. Always calm, always calculating. Like you're some FBI agent and I'm the suspect. Why don't you just say it? You think I'm lying. Say it. I set the mug down slowly, watching her. I didn't say that. No, but you implied it, she snapped. You always do. This little routine you pull, soft voice, innocent questions, your oh-so-polite way of accusing me without technically accusing me. It's manipulative, Ethan. Empathetic. Her face was flushed now. I folded my arms, not reacting, not rising to her bait. Julia, I said quietly. It was just a question. Was it, she hissed. Or were you hoping I'd trip on a detail so you could play Sherlock again? Maybe check my phone while I shower? God, you're unbelievable. Then she did something she hadn't done in months. She walked past me without a glance, grabbed her keys from the hook, and headed for the door, all fury and heels clicking like gunshots on hardwood. You want shopping bags? Go look for them yourself, she said, her voice trembling at the edge now. I'm done explaining myself to someone who sees ghosts where there aren't any. And then she was gone. Just like that. The silence after the door slammed was loud. I stayed still, barely blinking. My jaw tightened as I looked toward the hallway she'd vanished down. Julia, my wife. The woman I'd built my business with. The one who used to hum while pouring coffee in this very kitchen. She'd always been passionate. But this wasn't passion. This was fear dressed as fury. And I saw it now, clear as day. There was something underneath that rage. Something she didn't want me getting close to. So I stood there for a while. Let the silence settle. Let the weight of her outburst hang in the air like perfume from a broken bottle. She thought she'd shaken me. She hadn't. Because I wasn't angry. I was curious. And underneath that, beneath the calm face and stillness, a quiet suspicion had started to bloom. Not loud. Not messy. But cold. Precise. Like a thread waiting to be pulled. 2 days passed. Julia hadn't mentioned the fight. Not even a passing glance of regret or an olive branch hidden in small talk. If anything, she was colder. More controlled. Her smile in the office halls was polite, almost rehearsed, but it never reached her eyes when they met mine. She was still technically my director of client relations. The role had started as a favor. Now it was something far more entangled. Her signature was on contracts, her name on internal memos, her photo still in last quarter's press release beside mine. And today, she was leaving again. I watched from behind the frosted edge of my office wall as Julia clipped down the corridor in that familiar navy skirt suit, heels tapping against tile like a metronome. She didn't say a word as she passed Logan's desk. But I did. Logan, I said without looking away from the glass. My assistant, a sharp-eyed guy in his early 30s with a talent for discretion and an instinct for timing, straightened in his chair. Yes, sir. I nodded toward the elevator just as it closed. Follow her. Quietly. I want to know where she really goes during these lunch breaks. He hesitated just a beat, enough to confirm he understood the weight of the request. You want me to take photos? No. I finally looked away from the glass. Just the truth. Got it. He grabbed his jacket and left. Just like that. I didn't spend the afternoon pretending everything was normal. I didn't make small talk in meetings or over-caffeinate just to feel busy. I sat in silence for a while, the city below humming through the windows, and watched time crawl across the edge of my Rolex. When 5 o'clock hit, Logan was back. He knocked once and stepped inside, closing the door gently behind him. He wasn't carrying a notepad, just a look. One I didn't like. She didn't go shopping, he said, his voice low. I leaned back in my chair, fingers steepled under my chin. Go on. I tailed her to Midtown. She parked a block off Fremont, walked into this wine bar called Cobalt Lounge. She was there for almost 2 hours. Alone. He shook his head once. Met someone there. A man. Early 40s, maybe. Blue suit. Red tie. They hugged when she came in. He paused. They were close. I didn't speak. The silence filled the room like smoke. They didn't hold hands, Logan added carefully. Not in public. But they sat close. He ordered for her. She laughed a lot. Did you recognize him? No. I kept my distance. Took note of the car he left in, though, dark green Tesla. Plates were out of state. New Jersey. I closed my eyes for a second. Just one. A slow, steady breath in. When I opened them again, Logan hadn't moved. He was watching me like you watch a man who hasn't reacted yet, because you don't know which version of him is about to surface. I nodded. You did well. He gave a brief nod back. Want me to dig into him? No. I said, calm returning to my voice like muscle memory. Not yet. I stood and walked toward the window. Downtown pulsed below, taxis weaving between lights, pedestrians chasing the last warmth of the sun. She lied. Blatantly. With no hesitation. She chose a public place, a familiar time, a predictable lie. Like I wouldn't follow the scent. Like she thought I couldn't. Behind me, Logan asked quietly, do you want me to tell her I saw her? I turned my head just slightly. She'll know? When the time is right. He took the cue and left the room. And I stood there, unmoving, watching the sky dim by degrees as the city swallowed the light. The truth had landed. Heavy. Still. And there was something colder than anger taking root inside me now. Not revenge. Not grief. Just clarity. That night, the kitchen was silent except for the soft clink of glass on stone. I set my wine down slowly. No drama. No glare. And looked across the island at Julia, who was chopping shallots like nothing in her world had shifted. The air between us was almost polite. Too polite. She was humming. Quietly. An old Fleetwood Mac tune she always returned to when she was pretending things were fine. I didn't say anything for a while. Just watched her. The curve of her wrist as she moved. The way her fingers gripped the knife. Her glass of Chardonnay 3/4 full beside her elbow. When she finally glanced up, I spoke. I know about the man. The humming stopped. Her hand froze mid-slice. The silence that followed was immediate and sharp, like the air had been vacuumed out of the room. She turned to me, eyes wide with surprise, but only for a second. Then came the scoff. The forced chuckle. You've been spying on me? I didn't answer that. Just reached for my glass again and took a calm sip. You seriously had someone follow me? She asked, the disbelief turning sour. Still, I said nothing. Her voice rose with heat. That's what we're doing now? You plant your little assistance on me like I'm some criminal? She laughed again, this time louder, bitterer. Jesus, Ethan. I went to lunch with my brother. Kevin. He's going through something personal. I didn't think I needed to file a report for spending time with my own blood. Her tone sharpened as she kept going, every word stacked on top of the last. God forbid I have a glass of wine with family. But no, not in your world. You'd rather hire Logan to stalk me like a private detective. I stayed where I was. Steady. Unmoving. I didn't say it was Logan, I said quietly. That stopped her. She blinked, lips parting slightly. It was subtle, but it was there. A flicker of fear beneath the performance. That's what this is, she snapped, switching gears. You trying to catch me in some gotcha moment? What? You don't trust me now. I placed my glass down again, deliberately. You went to a wine bar. Fremont. Cobalt Lounge. You weren't alone. Julia flinched, just barely. But I saw it. Her grip on the counter tightened. You saw someone hug me, and you immediately. He ordered for you. Her jaw clicked shut. You laughed. A lot. I added, standing now. She stepped back as I rounded the island. You're twisting this. You're lying, I said, still calm. Right now? And poorly. Julia's face flushed. It was Kevin. He had an out-of-state rental. He's visiting a friend in Jersey next week. I swear. I walked to the wall hook where her car keys hung, took them down, and held them up without a word. She stared at me, confused. What are you doing? We're going to Kevin's, I said. The words were gentle. Too gentle. The kind of gentle that made her stomach twist. Now it was her turn to go still. Right now? Yes. That's insane. You said you had lunch with him, I replied. So let's go say hi. She folded her arms, trying to regain footing. Ethan, it's late. He'll still be up. Her mouth opened, then closed again. Her eyes darted to the side, calculating. She didn't move. I'm not asking, I said, still soft. Get your coat. The silence swelled between us, dense and dangerous. I didn't raise my voice once. Didn't accuse. Didn't demand. But I didn't break eye contact either. And that, more than anything else, rattled her. Her hands were trembling slightly as she reached for her coat. I watched her zip it up, slowly, mechanically, like her body was on autopilot while her mind scrambled for exits. She grabbed her purse, eyes flicking to me once, then away. We didn't speak as we walked out the door. Not a word in the elevator. Not a sound in the car, except for the quiet clicking of her thumbnail against the edge of her phone. By the time we turned onto Kevin Street, her knuckles were bone white against the leather seat. And I was still calm, still watching. Kevin lived on the top floor of a converted brownstone. Brick walls, mismatched furniture, faint scent of espresso and dust. He opened the door in socks and a faded sweatshirt that said Cleveland State, looking surprised to see us both standing there at 9:10. Hey, wow, he said, glancing between us. Everything okay? Julia forced a smile, already stepping inside. We were just in the neighborhood, she chirped, her voice a little too high. Thought we'd swing by. Kevin gave a little laugh, backing up to let us in. Sure. Didn't expect visitors. Place is kind of a mess. It wasn't. But that wasn't the point. I took in the space, framed photographs on exposed shelves, an old acoustic guitar leaning against the couch. A life lived simply, quietly. Kevin wasn't the problem, but he was about to be a variable. Julia sat down on the edge of the couch, coat still on, legs crossed so tightly it looked painful. I stayed standing. Kevin gave us both a puzzled glance as he walked toward the small, open kitchen. You want anything? Coffee, water? I shook my head. We won't stay long. He poured himself a glass of tap water, took a sip, then leaned against the counter, sensing something was off. So, what's this about? Julia jumped in. Ethan was just being dramatic. He thought it was weird I didn't tell him we had lunch, and now he's making a whole thing out of it. Kevin blinked. Oh, right. Yeah, well, it wasn't exactly planned. I tilted my head slightly. You had lunch with Julia on Tuesday? He nodded. Yeah. Julia gave me a triumphant glance. I smiled back. I owe you an apology, then. Guess I was off base. Kevin chuckled nervously. No worries, man. It was just about Mom's estate paperwork. Boring stuff. I see, I said. Just out of curiosity. What time did you two meet? Kevin looked up, thinking. Around 2, maybe a bit after. I was running late from a dental appointment. Julia made a soft sound in her throat. So quiet, I almost missed it. I didn't turn to her. Just nodded slowly. 2. Yeah. Julia said she had an open block between meetings. We met at that wine place off Fremont. Cobalt, I think. My gaze didn't waver. I could feel her beside me, suddenly motionless. Kevin, I said gently. Logan saw her there at 12:20. Julia's voice cracked. He must be wrong. Kevin straightened. Wait, 12:20? No, I was still at the dentist. Silence. Julia shot up. Ethan, this is ridiculous. Logan probably saw someone else. He followed your car. I said, still facing Kevin. Watched you park. Watched you go in. Kevin looked between us now, clearly catching up to the tension. Hold on. What's going on? Julia grabbed my arm. You're humiliating me. No, I replied quietly. I'm watching you unravel. Her grip tightened, then dropped away. I turned to Kevin and gave him a polite nod. Thanks for your honesty. He nodded, slowly, confusion clouding his face. I looked at Julia. Her eyes were wide now. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. There it was. That split second of exposed panic. The mask had finally slipped, and I saw everything I needed. The next morning came with a quiet so brittle it felt like walking on glass. Julia didn't speak to me when she left the bedroom. She didn't kiss me on the cheek, didn't mention coffee, just a slamming of the bathroom door, a blur of perfume and heels in the hallway, and then she was gone. Again. And this time, at precisely 12:04 p.m., her name vanished from the company's employee location tracker. Technically, she was out visiting a client, but I knew better. So did Logan, who knocked gently on my office door just before 1. She's off the premises, he said quietly. No meeting booked on her calendar. I didn't nod, didn't blink, just turned back toward my computer, opened the HR admin console, and pulled up her file. There was nothing dramatic about what I did. No vengeance. No rage. Just the kind of cold precision you use when sealing a vault. Employee, Julia Remington Gray Department. Client relations infraction. Unauthorized absence from company property during scheduled work hours. No internal or external meeting logged. No authorization given. Action. First formal warning. Reprimand issued and added to permanent personnel record. I clicked submit. By the time I arrived home that evening, the sun had long since dipped behind the skyline. Our apartment glowed warm with dim lamps and curated silence. I loosened my tie, poured a scotch over ice, and settled onto the couch. 5 minutes later, the door burst open. Julia stormed into the room like a hurricane in silk and leather, her hair pinned perfectly, but her fury unraveling fast. "What the hell is this?" she snapped, slapping the printed reprimand letter down on the marble coffee table. I didn't even flinch, just glanced at it, then lifted my glass. "You tell me," I said casually. Her hands were fists. "A formal warning? In my file? Are you serious, Ethan? You left the building without clearance." "I work there," she shot back. "I helped build that business with you. You don't help by disappearing in the middle of the day," I said coolly. "Not anymore." Julia stepped back, eyes wild. "You're punishing me? At work? Because of this?" I looked at her and sipped again. "No, I'm correcting misconduct." She scoffed, laughing without humor. "You're humiliating me. Everyone in HR saw this. You couldn't even talk to me like a human being?" I leaned back against the cushion, setting the glass on the armrest with deliberate calm. "I did talk to you. In Kevin's living room." Her mouth opened, ready to fire off another retort, but it caught in her throat. I didn't let the silence go to waste. "You were supposed to be at work, Julia, not sneaking around." She shook her head in disbelief. "You're disgusting. You think this gives you control? You think this makes you righteous?" "No," I said softly. "It makes me honest." She stared at me, just stared, for several long seconds, as if trying to locate the man she once married inside the one seated before her now. But I didn't budge. I didn't plead. I didn't ask for anything, because I wasn't the one caught. She picked up the letter again, hands trembling, and crumpled it in one fist before tossing it onto the floor. Then she turned and stormed down the hall, slamming the bedroom door behind her so hard the frame rattled. I sat there in the quiet, took another slow sip, and let the scotch burn down to my chest. That wasn't the sound of power. That was the sound of desperation, and it rang louder than anything she'd said all night. The text came in just after lunch, from Kevin. "Can we talk? Just you and me. Riverside Cafe for 30. No emojis. No punctuation beyond that single period. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then replied, "I'll be there." The Riverside Cafe sat nestled beneath a line of weathered maples, right along the slow bend of the Halston River. It wasn't trendy. It wasn't polished. It had chipped paint on the patio rails and plastic menus that hadn't changed in 5 years. But it was quiet. Honest. I got there early, sat outside with a black coffee, and didn't bother checking the time. Kevin showed up 5 minutes later, his hands stuffed in the pockets of a worn jacket, his eyes heavy with something unspoken. He didn't smile. "Hey," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Thanks for coming." I nodded once. "What's on your mind?" Kevin stared out toward the river, where a lone duck was cutting a lazy trail through the water. "I lied to you," he said, no hesitation. I didn't respond, just waited. He ran a hand through his hair, let out a shaky breath. "That day you showed up at my place, I panicked. I didn't know what else to say. Julia had already warned me. She said you might come by, ask questions, told me to say we'd had lunch. She even fed me the time." I said nothing. Let him keep going. "She was scared, man," he said, "but not in the way you'd think. Not afraid of being caught. More like desperate. Like she was trying to hold on to something with both hands, even while it was slipping through her fingers." Kevin's voice cracked slightly on the last word. He cleared his throat, looked at me. I didn't know what to do. "She's my sister. I didn't think. Hell, I never thought she'd actually do this to you." I nodded slowly. "Neither did I." He stared at his hands, rubbing his palms together like he was trying to scrub away something that wouldn't wash off. "I should have told you right then," he said. I messed up. You were loyal, I said quietly. I understand. I wasn't loyal to the right person. That hung between us for a moment. Then he reached into his coat pocket and slid a folded note across the table. There's a guy, he said. Private investigator. Clean, quiet, discreet. If you want to know everything, who she's meeting, how long it's been going on, this guy will find it. I didn't touch the paper. Kevin looked up. You should know, Ethan. Don't let her rewrite this. I studied the paper, the sharp edges of it curling slightly from the cold. Then I pushed it gently back across the table. I already know enough. He blinked. You sure? I'm not here to punish her, I said. Not that way. I don't need surveillance. I don't need photos in a manila envelope. Kevin exhaled slowly, nodding like he understood, even if he didn't agree. You're a better man than I would be. No, I said simply. Just a quieter one. We both sat back for a moment, listening to the wind move across the river. I'm sorry, Ethan, Kevin said after a while. For lying. For not stopping it. For being part of it. I know, I said. That's why I'm here. A waitress came by and asked if we needed anything. Neither of us did. Kevin stood first. If there's anything I can do, anything at all, just say it. I nodded. You already did. He paused like he wanted to say something else, then thought better of it. With a final nod, he turned and walked off into the dusky light, hands back in his pockets. I stayed behind for a few minutes, watching the river and the empty space across the table. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Whatever Julia thought she had buried beneath lies and timing, it was already floating to the surface. Some truths didn't need digging. They came for you, quiet and cold, like the river. 3 days passed. Julia was quieter now, but not in the way that meant peace. It was the kind of quiet that schemed, that stepped lighter, that turned off her location sharing and blamed battery issues. That morning, she left the office again around noon. No goodbyes, no meetings booked, nothing. Just a handbag, lipstick reapplied with surgical precision, and a door swinging shut behind her. Logan didn't need prompting this time. He caught my glance as I stepped into my glass-walled office, gave the faintest nod, and tapped something into his phone. But I didn't have time to dwell. Because at exactly 12:42 p.m, someone knocked on my door. Not a usual knock. 3 quick taps. Measured. Intentional. Come in, I called. The woman who stepped in looked like she didn't belong, because she clearly didn't want to belong. Dark trench coat. Auburn hair pulled into a tight bun. Calm expression, but her eyes were lit with something volatile just beneath the surface. She closed the door behind her carefully. You're Ethan Gray, she said, not asked, stated. I nodded slowly, standing. I am. She extended a hand. Lisa Wren. I believe my husband's been seeing your wife. The moment settled like fog around us. I didn't blink, didn't react, just gently shook her hand and gestured for her to sit. She didn't. I wasn't sure how to approach this, she said, her voice steady but shaking ever so slightly around the edges. But I figured you'd rather hear it from someone whose life has also been played with. I appreciate directness, I said. Please go on. She glanced briefly through the glass at the office floor beyond, then leaned slightly closer. My husband's name is Graham. You probably don't know him. You might not have seen him, but he's the one your wife meets at Cobalt. They've been doing this for months. I tilted my head slightly. How do you know? I followed him, she said bluntly. Checked hotel receipts. Text logs. You know what you find when you stop trusting someone? Everything. There was a calm rage in her words. Not hysteria, not heartbreak. She'd passed through those already. What remained was purpose. They meet during the day. Afternoons mostly. Always careful. Never the same location twice in 1 week. He's methodical, but not enough. I stepped around my desk. Why now? She looked me dead in the eye. Because they think they're clever. But I'm done letting liars shape the story. Silence. Then I extended my hand again. She stared at it for a moment, then took it. Let's bring it all to light, I said. She nodded once. No smile. No warmth. Just that shared, ice-cold understanding between two people who were done being lied to. And in that sterile office, between emails and marble floors, something shifted. We weren't victims anymore. We were witnesses. And we were about to turn on the floodlights. It was late, just after 7. I was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse, the city humming below like a restless machine. A scotch in one hand, the other tucked into my pocket. Then, 3 sharp knocks. I turned as the elevator doors slid open directly into my living room. Lisa. No words, no hesitation. Just fire in her eyes and a phone gripped like a weapon. They're together, she said, breathless but fierce. Right now? I tracked his location. He's not in Midtown like he told me. He's at the Elmore. I set my glass down calm. Julia told me she was having dinner with the girls. Lisa let out a single dry laugh. Then maybe her girls now include my husband. I didn't rush. I just reached for my phone and pulled up Julia's message thread. Me, where are you? A pause. Then, Julia, out to dinner. Girls' night. Why? I smiled faintly. Me. Tell him his wife liked our bed. No typing dots. Nothing. 5 seconds. Then 10. Then, my phone lit up. Incoming call. Julia, I picked up and didn't speak. Ethan, her voice hissed, all breath and panic. What are you doing in our house? She sounded like someone already halfway to a meltdown. I didn't answer her. Just held the phone out, pointed the camera toward the bed behind me. Our bed. The one we bought together. The one with the walnut headboard she picked out from a boutique catalog in Vermont. The one she claimed was ours no matter what. Lisa sat on the edge of it, arms folded. Her expression unreadable, her presence unshaken. I stepped into frame beside her, raised the camera, and took the photo. One click. No smiles. Just two people who were done staying silent. I texted the image with no caption. No response came back. Lisa exhaled and stood, her hands brushing the hem of her coat. That should do it. I nodded. They'll both see what they left behind. We stood there, not as partners, not as allies anymore, but as two individuals who had completed something brutal and clean. The picture wasn't about revenge. It was about exposure. Proof. Let them feel that moment of pure, helpless clarity, the one where lies ran out of places to hide. Lisa checked her phone once. He hasn't texted. Guess he's still with her. I raised a brow. Think they'll stay together? She gave a quiet, bitter smile. They never had to. They just had to think they could. The city glowed beyond the glass. Cold, alive, watching. The penthouse door clicked exactly 10 minutes later. The sound echoed, sharp and final. I stayed seated in the armchair by the fireplace, glass in hand, Lisa next to me, her posture statuesque, arms crossed, eyes locked on the hallway like a lioness waiting for movement in the grass. Then they stepped in. First Julia, her hair slightly windblown, coat slipping off her shoulder, clutch in hand. Her smile was halfway formed, the kind you wear before you've seen the crash. And then Graham, right behind her, still buttoning his blazer, laughing at something she must have just said. But the moment they saw us, the air changed. He stopped mid-step. Julia froze as if she'd walked into a nightmare that looked exactly like her living room. Her smile evaporated. Graham's face drained to a chalky gray. Lisa didn't move. She didn't blink. She simply reached into her leather handbag, pulled out a thick envelope, and tossed it onto the coffee table with a soft thump. Divorce papers, she said. My family's attorneys drafted them this morning. We're filing tomorrow. Julia blinked fast, a shaky hand lifting to her chest. Lisa, please, wait. This isn't. I've been waiting, Lisa said coolly. I waited while you sneaked around, while you lied, while you took my husband into someone else's marriage like it was a game. Graham took a step forward, jaw tight. This is private. You both have no right to. I stood up, slowly, without a word. He turned to me, posture puffed like he thought he still had the upper hand. Then he lunged. Sloppy. Predictable. My arm met his chest mid-stride, and I shoved once. Clean, sharp, practiced. He stumbled back and collapsed onto the couch behind him with a stunned grunt, his pride hitting harder than his spine. Lisa didn't flinch. Julia gasped and rushed to his side, but her eyes were locked on me the whole time, pleading, confused, desperate. Ethan, please. I didn't know she'd do this. I was going to tell you. Save it, I said, my voice low, unwavering. You already had every chance. She stood now, eyes glossy, voice breaking. Don't throw us away because of this, because of her. We can fix this. We can talk. I stepped closer, calm and cold as stone. No, I said. You've already thrown it away. You just didn't think I'd catch it midair. Julia's lip trembled. We can move past this, Ethan. I know you. I know your heart. I leaned in slightly. You don't know me anymore. Lisa watched in silence as I reached into the drawer beside the fireplace, and pulled out a matching envelope, my own set of papers. I placed them beside hers on the table with quiet finality. I'm filing too, I said. We're done. Graham sat still, his breath short, a hand pressed to his chest like he was just now realizing this was real. Julia stared at the two envelopes like they were weapons she didn't know existed. This can't be it, she whispered. Ethan. I made a mistake. I held up a hand, cutting her off. No, you made a plan. You just didn't plan for us to stop playing along. For a moment, no one moved. The air buzzed with everything unspoken, betrayal, regret, humiliation. But above all, truth. Lisa stepped to the door first, and I followed. Neither of us looked back. We didn't need to. Behind us sat the ruins of their choices. And ahead of us, the start of something new, something unburdened, something earned through fire. 3 weeks passed. Not quietly. Word spread faster than I expected, inside the office, among our clients, even across industry circles. Nobody ever says it out loud, but people watch. And they remember. The polished marriage behind the polished brand, it was gone. The mask was off. And still, I kept coming in. Still sat in the same chair at the head of the table. Still led meetings. Still moved projects forward like nothing had burned down around me. But then came Friday morning. Logan buzzed in. Julia's here. Says she'd like a word, if you're available. I paused. Not because I was surprised, but because I already knew this moment was coming. Send her in, I said. She stepped inside slowly, wearing a gray pantsuit that looked a little too pressed, like she'd ironed every crease twice hoping to smooth out more than just fabric. Her makeup was muted, but her eyes looked tired. Older. Hi, she said softly, closing the door behind her. Do you have a minute? I didn't smile. Didn't stand. Sit. She moved to the chair across from my desk, hands folded in her lap, shoulders slightly hunched like she was bracing for something. I know I don't deserve much, she began, her voice already trembling at the edges, but I need this job, Ethan. I know how it looks. I know what I did. But I have nothing else. I watched her. Not coldly. Not cruelly. Just clearly. My parents won't speak to me, she continued. My sister told me to disappear. The apartment Graham and I had fell through. Turns out he wasn't legally separated like he said. He moved back in with his wife 2 days after you served him those papers. Her voice cracked just a little, but she swallowed it down. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I lost that. But this job, this is all I've got left. Please don't take it from me. The office was silent except for the soft hum of the city below. I leaned back in my chair. You're not being fired. Her breath caught, just barely. You'll stay? I continued, voice calm. But this isn't a charity. You'll work. You'll earn it. Like everyone else. Julia's eyes searched mine for a moment, unsure of what she was hearing. No more late lunches. No personal favors. No shielding. No soft roles. She nodded quickly. Of course. Absolutely. You'll report directly to Logan, I said. Not me. And if you're even 5 minutes late, you'll be written up. She nodded again, tighter this time. Understood. I'll give you a chance to rebuild something. But I won't be part of it. Julia blinked fast. Thank you, Ethan. I mean it. I won't waste it. I gave a short nod and picked up the folder on my desk, signaling the meeting was over. She stood, hesitated like she wanted to say something more, then quietly walked to the door. Just before she stepped out, I looked up one last time. The Ethan you knew, the one you used to walk all over? I said, he's not here anymore. She turned slowly, meeting my eyes. For a moment, it looked like she wanted to cry. But she didn't. She just nodded, murmured a small I know, and slipped out the door. And I returned to my work. No bitterness. No triumph. Just clarity. The power had shifted. Not out of vengeance, but from truth. The New Year's gala shimmered like something out of a different life. Glass chandeliers. String quartet. Waiters weaving through a sea of tailored tuxedos and jewel-toned dresses, each one more polished than the last. The event was elegant, restrained, exactly how I wanted the company to be remembered closing out the year. I arrived just after 8, and I wasn't alone. On my arm was Claire, the director of a nonprofit we'd partnered with earlier in the fall. Kind eyes, sharp wit, graceful in the kind of way that didn't need effort. Her dress was midnight blue, her smile quiet but certain. We didn't make a show of anything. No overdone gestures, no staged affection. But we didn't have to. People noticed. And one of them was Julia. She was standing across the room, near the bar, champagne glass untouched in her hand, lips painted too red, posture too perfect, like she was trying to hold herself up with the image alone. When her eyes met mine, I didn't flinch, didn't look away. I nodded politely once. She didn't return it. Her expression didn't change, not even when Claire laughed softly beside me at something I said, touching my arm with the kind of familiarity that made the moment real. Julia turned then, just slightly, like the room was suddenly too bright. She disappeared into the crowd minutes later. I didn't follow, not out of cruelty, but because I didn't need anything from her anymore. The next morning, I came into the office early. The building still hummed with post-gala silence, glitter lingering in corners no one would notice unless they were looking. And waiting on my desk was a white envelope. No name on the outside, no note. I opened it slowly. Inside, Julia's resignation. Typed. Formal. Short. Effective immediately. I stared at the words for a while, then set the letter down with a faint smile. Something small, private. Not joy, not sadness, just a quiet peace. I didn't call her, didn't respond, didn't need to. She had finally walked out the way she should have from the start. Without drama, without lies, just a signature, an exit, and me, still standing, still moving forward. And this time, not alone. And that was the end of the story. I keep thinking about Kevin, how he lied for his sister, then came clean when it mattered. He didn't have to, but maybe he saved more than just my dignity that day. What do you think? Did Kevin do the right thing in the end, or would you have handled it differently? Let me know in the comments. And if this story hit you somewhere real, don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got more to tell.